Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of the Universe podcast. It is an honor to have you here, and today we'll be talking about friendship. This is the second time I am recording this. I didn't get too far last time, but the only reason why I'm recording this a second time is because I forgot to connect the microphone. So just talking to myself for a long time without connecting the microphone, but now the microphone has been connected. So anyway, welcome again. And today I want to talk about friendship. This stemmed from a song that I was listening to last week, pretty famous song, How Are You by Johnny Drille. And um, it was basically what spoke to me about that song specifically is the concept of checking up on the people that you consider to be your friends. And I feel like that is where this came from. Just wanted to talk about it. Checking up on people that I consider to be my friends. That is one of the highlights of my week, just being able to take that action, even if it's people that you have not talked to in a long time, or whether it's someone that you talk to every day. Regardless, I feel like checking up on your friends is an important thing, and that brought me to want to talk about friendship. Today's episode was going to be about creativity and how it helps outside of art and music, but I decided that this is more important for me right now because it was a big part of this week, amongst other things. And yeah, so before we begin, be sure to like, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, follow on Instagram and also on the Wildlife Podcast. All links will be in the description below, and I am looking forward to hearing from you. Another thing is I have a Patreon where I will be posting other things, maybe slightly longer videos, or I'll be reading poems that I've written, or I'll be putting products in the future that I plan to sell. And if you want to support the channel financially in any way, every cent counts. I have a Ko-fi page. Link will also be in the description, and all the details will be written down below. But without further ado, let us begin. So, I wanted to start with a quote by I want to start with a quote by Albert Hubbard. The quote says, "A friend is someone who knows all about you but still loves you." I feel that pretty much summarizes everything or most of what I'm going to talk about today. And just the concept of you know everything about me, the good, the bad, and the ugly, yet you're still here with me going through this life. I feel like that pretty much makes up a good friend, and that's what we're just going to be around that area in general. So friendship is one of the most beautiful yet complex concepts of life in regards to relationships. So I feel like friendship goes beyond just having fun together. That is something that friends do, but I feel it goes beyond that. I think a good friendship has trust, it has honesty, it has mutual respect, and room for growing together as individuals as life goes on. You can think of Frodo and Sam from The Lord of the Rings, or Naruto and Sasuke for those who watch anime. And despite the differences, despite the things that they go through together and apart, the fights, the arguments, long periods of time without meeting each other, you still feel like these guys are friends. And these things, trust, honesty, mutual respect, and growth, are the things that make a friendship. And I feel like a scenario in which I would determine a good friend is just think about being at your lowest and imagine the person who checks up on you or makes an effort to know how you're doing and even help where they can. And 90% of the time, the only help that we really need in situations like those is just someone to talk to about anything. You may be going through the worst moment of your life, but just because your friend reached out to you and like, how can I help you? And you're like, just talk. Like, let's just talk about literally anything. That does more than people realize, even from a psychological perspective, but that's a topic for another day. Second point is determining true friends. How do you determine who a true friend is? So I want to talk about what the red flags could be in regards to forming friendships, in regards to being in friendships. Um, First is people who only reach out when they need something from you. That's a pretty big one that we've all gone through at some point where you're like, okay, we've not talked in a while, and the only reason that you're reaching out at this moment in time is because you need something from me. I do not believe that that is a true friend. Not to say that your friends can't reach out in need, but that shouldn't be the only reason why they're reaching out to you in the first place. So there's also those who don't celebrate your success. So basically, when you succeed at doing something, they're jealous instead of celebrating with you. And that, personally, for me, would not be considered a good friendship in any sense. Um, and then there's the obvious one of people who who belittle you or make you feel less worthy than you really are, and especially in social situations where you assumed someone was your friend, but the way they're talking about you really, you know, gives you a different picture as to how they've been seeing you since that friendship, or so you thought, started. And some of the green flags in relationships are basically the opposite of the red flags. So people who stand by you in tough times. Second is the people who push you to be better in whatever area that could be, whether it's academically, whether it's physically, regardless. And people who are honest but kind. People who always tell the truth. One thing I like about the friendships that I have, especially with uh, my best friends, is when something is not right, honesty is the first resort. Um, if you're going down a certain path and we see you going down that path, we won't tell you maybe, we'll just tell you stop. Like, don't do that. So I feel like that's what true friendship is, especially in regards to being honest but kind. Where I'm like, okay, I don't think that this will be good for you. So I'm telling you, as your friend, do these three things instead of that. And vice versa. It could be me being advised on that thing and taking their honesty well. Um, so I feel like that for me, in regards to a lot of things, maybe like my physical life, exercise, and a lot of it was inspired by a good friend, and just the pushing that we do of each other, pushing back and forth and saying, okay, where have you reached with your goals? Things like accountability, for example. Okay, I don't think you can do that, or I think it'll be better if you did this. Again, back to the kind honesty. So, in regards to friendship, again, a scenario, you win something. Think of any prestigious award in whatever field that you're interested in. As an actor, it could be an Oscar. As a musician, it could be a Grammy. Just think that level of things. So, who amongst the people you call your friends would be genuinely happy for you, or seemingly jealous of the victory that you have achieved? And I feel like that's a good way or a good scenario in which you can put these things in to be able to determine the genuinity or how genuine that friendship is. So next I want to talk about making and maintaining friendships. A lot of the friends that I have now, I made quite a while back. Maybe it's at least like the closest friend that I've made time wise is probably within the last 3 years. But anyway, I just want to talk about some things that I've found either online or through experience that help with making friends. So one is being open and approachable. I don't think having a stone face and hiding at a corner will bring you any friends, and that's something that I've had to teach myself. So when I go to social spaces, I like for church, for example, I tend when attending service, I sit at the front intentionally, just so that you can just get yourself out of your comfort zone, so to speak. And I feel like that has really helped me in many cases. And there's no way I there's no way that I made a friend by sitting stone faced at the corner, like being closed and unapproachable. Next is finding common interests. Once you've broken through the approachable part and someone has actually approached you, chances are, at least I'll speak from a man's perspective, the first thing they'll ask you is something like, "Do you follow this team? Have you watched this movie or show?" Or they'll tell you just something similar that they'd assume that you like. So they'd ask you first, and then you're like, "Oh yeah," and then that conversation will go in a million different ways, but at least it has started. And then the third is now after the fact, after you've been open and approachable, after you've found common interest, there is now investing time and effort into those relationships. So when can we meet again? Can I have your number? When can we talk again? See you next time, wherever next time will be, and things like that. And in regards to keeping friendships, I feel like there's three things as well: communication and honesty, um, which I mentioned previously as well. So just being in constant communication, as constant as you can. Life happens and you can't talk to some people for a while. A case that I've been in, but then just being honest and communicating as regularly as you can, being there for each other emotionally, which can be a difficult thing. I'd speak from a man's perspective. It can be a difficult thing for men to be emotionally available, especially for other men. But I've found that in the cases in which we embrace that emotional availability, things get done. Because men are very step by step, but in the midst of being step by step, there is room for emotional availability that can um, help your friend in that situation. And lastly, is respecting differences and personal growth. So sometimes there may be periods in life where you feel like, okay, I don't want to, or I want to, and your friend being able to respect that, and vice versa. You being able to respect your friend's decisions to do certain things as long as they are right. And if they're not right, again, you should be kind and but honest and tell them this is not right. But in cases where life just happens, you should be able to accept that your friend might be going through things or that you might be going through things, but going back to being there for each other emotionally and communication and honesty, you'll be able to keep communication, be honest, and be emotionally available for them, which helps you with keeping that connection going, in my opinion. So you can think of Woody and Buzz from Toy Story. They start as rivals, but then life happens, circumstances happen, and they're in a difficult situation in which they need each other to get out of. And as a result of that, they become best friends, and they are the reason why the Toy Story franchise is as special as it is. So now it's like having friends with different interests, but you still find ways to bond. There's still maybe that one thing, or maybe you even sacrifice part of, not to say part of your mind, but anyway, like for example, you have you have an interest, and your friend has a different interest, and either of you is like, okay, I'm going to take a bit of time and learn about this guy's interest. Like there's one of my best friends likes rugby and Formula One, and I've watched rugby but not as much, and I've not really watched Formula One. But then as time went, you start to learn the names, you start to learn how rules work and things like that. And it makes conversations easier because now you relate to a lot of the things that they're talking about, and vice versa. Yeah, so another thing is I want to talk about good friends bringing out the best in each other. So friends should inspire and motivate, not drag each other down, in my opinion. Um, I feel like, again, one of my best friends, the one thing that we are very adamant about, the both of us, is our physical, mental, and spiritual training, in regards whether it's going to the gym, reading the Bible, the way we communicate and socialize with others has been something that we talk about extremely often. And just being able to keep each other accountable almost daily has been, I think, one of the biggest impacts of in my life, as of recently. You know, hit this goal the other day, fine, aim for this next week, things like that. Just bringing out the best in each other, whether it's online mentors, whether it's your best friend, whoever it is that you consider to be people that you communicate with regularly, or people you consider to be your friends, them bring out the best in you is essential for a good friendship. A very good example is parenting. So with parents, I feel like, at least in my case, there's a lot of discussions that have been had. There's a lot of scenarios that I've been put in. There's a lot of responsibilities that have been given to me that have made me 100 times better than I was merely 365 days ago, just because of, being told, okay, this is what you need to do, this is how you're going to do it. You might not like me now, but you're going to thank me for it eventually. And the truth is, 100% of the time, that is the case when you do that. So I feel like parents will bring out the best in their children, whether through conversation, whether through saying something like, I know you're good at this, so work on this for the next 6 months and see how it turns out. Those things, at least 90 to 100% of the time, always work. And I think that would be the best example of good friends bringing out the best in each other. And then I want to talk about next struggles in friendships, of which there are many, but I want to pick three common conflicts. So there's misunderstanding and jealousy. There's feeling like you give more than you receive, which is a big one. And then there's growing apart as people change. So the first one, misunderstanding and jealousy, there could be a point where you have conflict over a certain scenario, over a certain thing, whether intended or not. And that could bring you apart in that sense, regardless of what kind of friendship it was. So, and then there's jealousy, where you you thought that you'd not feel bad when this person won, but then they win, and you're like, okay, well, I kind of wish that could have been me, but I'm happy for them regardless. But you don't really um, bring out that happiness when you're speaking to them, or when you're celebrating that victory with them. So second is feeling like you give more than you receive. I feel like this is, out of the three, this is probably the biggest one when it comes to friendships. You can be talking to someone and you feel like you're giving 80% and they're giving 20%. It could have been a friendship that started with so much fire, and now after a week or 2 or 3 weeks or a month or however long, you feel like every time you text, it takes even 24 hours to respond, or your conversations are like 6 messages long, or you go a long time without talking, and they don't reach out to you, you're always the one reaching out to them, and stuff like that are what I'd say you're giving more of your energy than they are. And that's one of the, I think, leading causes of friendships breaking apart, where like, okay, if you're doing that, then this is not worth my time. And then lastly is growing apart as people change. By people changing, I mean more emotionally, psychologically, and in terms of circumstances. Moving to a new country, adopting new habits, going to college, and then personality-wise, maybe the person went through something and now they're more mean or than you remember, or something like that. And that can drive you apart. We're like, okay, this is not the person that I know. Since they did this, since they went there, since this thing happened to them, our friendship has not been the way it was before, and that's another thing that causes these friendships to drift apart in the first place. You can think Sherlock Holmes and Watson. So they fight quite a bit, but eventually they come together, solve their crimes, and it's etc. etc. And scenario wise, imagine you have a friend, a good friend, best friend, and you have an argument of any kind. I feel like the best thing would be to resolve it, but it doesn't always end like that. Sometimes you don't end up resolving that issue, and it drives you apart. And it's up to you to decide whether you want to, go back and mend that friendship or not. That's completely up to you. But I feel like these three things, misunderstanding and jealousy, feeling like you give more than you receive, and growing apart as people change, are the three things that cause the most divide in regards to friendships. So, lastly, I want to talk about letting go of friendships. So, I'll talk about three signs that it's time to move on. The friendship feels one sided, which goes back to giving more energy and not receiving as much. They drain your energy instead of uplifting you, which goes back to motivation and, helping you grow as a person. And then third, there's repeated betrayal or lack of respect. So there's a lot of faults that happen intentionally, and your friend asks for forgiveness, and you're like, okay, but at some point it becomes too much, and like, are you really genuinely invested in this or not, and things like that. And I feel like there's two ways, in my opinion, that you can let go gracefully, let's call it. So the first is distance. So there's what I think the best way is to just tell the person your reason. So I don't think that this friendship is working because of this and this and this and this, and that is the reason why I've chosen to distance myself. My decision does not reflect on you as a person, but I do feel like these things that you're doing are the reason why I feel this friendship isn't going to work anymore. That's one way. Second is acknowledge the good but accept change. So this friendship has been good for this and this and this reasons, but because of this change that has happened, I don't think that we can remain friends anymore, because it's draining me more than uplifting me. I'm not getting as much energy. Just it relates back to what we've been talking about for the past 20 minutes. And granted, letting go of friendships can be hard, but things happen, circumstances change. And then there's also the concept of people who you thought were your friends. Let me say this before I conclude. People who you thought were your friends but weren't really. And goes back to everything I've been talking about. You think they're a friend, but once life happens, they're gone. Maybe they don't communicate with you or things like that, things along those lines. But it happens. That's what I'd say. It happens. So something like, if you've watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, you can use Zuko as an example. The biggest growth that he had as a person was after he walked away from his old friends, or from the Fire Nation, and that grew him as a person as he went, as a exiled with his uncle Iroh. And I feel like those are some of the sort of journeys that help someone grow. Just distance yourself. Maybe you'd even make better friends because of distancing yourself from that friendship. So, in conclusion, true friends uplift you, challenge you, help you grow. Not all friendships last, and that's okay. They say there's friends for a reason, and then there's friends for a season. Friendship is beyond having fun together. Making and maintaining friendships, being open, find common interests, invest time and effort into relationships in terms of keeping them, communication and honesty, being there for each other emotionally, and respecting differences and personal growth. Good friends bring out the best in each other, they help you achieve your goals, and they support your dreams even when others don't. Struggles in friendships, misunderstanding and jealousy, feeling like you give more than you receive, growing apart as people change, and lastly, letting go of friendships. Friendship feels one sided, they drain your energy instead of uplifting you, and there's repeated betrayal or lack of respect. And in terms of letting go gracefully, no need for drama, just distance yourself, acknowledge the good, but accept that people change, and that will be it for today's episode. I feel like, in terms of this new version of the Yodaverse podcast, that is the longest one that I have done. And I'd say, to leave you with something, friendship is like a garden. Nurture the right ones, and don't be afraid to weed out the bad. And that's just the way life is, in that case. So reflect on your friendships, and think Does this person bring out the best in me? Do I bring out the best in them? Are we uplifting and encouraging? Do I get jealous when they win? Do they get jealous when I win? Things like that. Just reflect on it, and maybe you'll save yourself a whole lot of pain in the future by letting go of some friendships or leaning in more into some friendships. Maybe there's some people that you've just put off to the side who have potential to be your best friends in the future. And last thing, and a word of advice that has come from my parents and people around me who are much, much older than me, and some that I've seen as my life has gone on, is a lot of the time you've not yet met your very good um, friends. You've not met your best friends yet. Chances are, maybe you're one of those people who, the person that you met at 5 years old is the same best friend you're gonna have when you're 50. But in a lot of cases, you've not made your best friend met your best friend yet. I am 18 right now. I still have so many more decades to live, so many more friends to make, and things like that. So that adds to the point on letting go of friendships is you have not chances are you've not met your best friend yet. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you'll meet your best friend when you're 28. Maybe you'll meet your best friend when you're 45 or things like that. And that's just one little bonus thing that I wanted to add before concluding. Yeah, so that is it for the longest episode of the podcast so far. And I really, really hope you enjoyed it. This is a topic that is very close to my heart. I hope to talk about things like this more and more. I am also growing and trying to be a good friend to those around me in the best way I can, whether it's through checking on people, I feel like is the best thing that you can do. So think of the people that you've not reached out to in a long time and let go of all feelings of shame or unapproachability and just say, hey, how are you doing? It's been a while. Have you been? How's life? How's it going? Things like that. Whether they respond or not, at least you took that upon your heart to be able to reach out to them and see how they're doing. And maybe it changes someone's day. Maybe it could be, I've not talked to anyone in such a long time, so good to hear from you. Or maybe they don't respond at all. But at the end of the day, it's perfectly fine. Taking the step is what matters, in my opinion. So yeah, that'll be it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to either DM on Instagram or leave a comment down below. It is always much appreciated. Again, all the links to the Instagram, the Patreon, the Wildlife channel, the Ko-fi, and everything will be down below. I don't think I like the name Coffee. I think just instead of buy me a coffee, it should be something like buy me a sketchbook. Anyway, I'm ranting now. So thank you so much. If you've listened or watched this far, it is greatly appreciated. Not everyone likes long form content, but personally, I enjoy talking for a long time. It's the reason why I started this podcast in the first place. And so, thank you again for listening and watching, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or any other platforms that we will be in the future. Have an amazing, amazing day, week, month, and years. And I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.